Good evening. It's 9:04 p.m. on Good Friday. You're watching the Cheese Room podcast with me, the caller, live on YouTube tonight. You know the drill. Hit the like button, get your super chats in, leave us loads of comments, and we will try to get to as many as possible during the show. Apologies for slight tardiness this evening. This is due to my youngest daughter being a complete twat and not going to sleep when she's told.
You're throwing your own daughter under the bus.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh no, this is just the start of throwing daughter. I've got two of them to throw under the bus, so don't worry about that.
Is he Antonio Conte of parenting tonight, isn't he?
Yeah, she won't listen. She's selfish. Yeah, exactly. But there you go. It is the long Good Friday, apparently. So happy Easter, Ramadan Mubarak, and Dave, you do the pronunciation on the next one.
And it's Chag Pesach Sameach to all cheeseheads.
There you go. Absolutely. Tell us about this. Where you've dug this out from, Dave? Is that?
It's Hebrew. It's Hebrew. I put it in Hebrew in phonetic format. So
no, the long Good Friday, you idiot.
That's also in Hebrew in phonetic format. The long Good Friday is okay. It's Bob Hoskins, right?
Bob Hoskins,
it's one of the most classic English gangster movies. It's in the late 70s, featuring Helen Mirren. Bob Hoskins, check it out. It's a great film.
And is that anything to do with Good Friday, or did you just feel that it was necessary?
Well, it's obviously the title has the words "Good" and "Friday" in it,
and that was enough for you. I've removed him on the basis I don't want to hear anymore. Sorry, come back, Dave.
It's set around Good Friday weekend, a good Easter weekend. Okay.
Okay, good. Well, look, I'm glad to have you. Oh, obviously, welcome to you, Dave. I should say, all the way from the land down under. You better run. You better take cover. Any birds there today that we need to be aware of?
Sun's coming up. The blinds will be over soon, and there will be birds tweeting everywhere.
I meant, have you pulled? Have you got any women round, or is it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Not really, because my teenage sons are asleep in bed next door. No.
There we go. Cam from the land down under, but he's here in England. I understand. Yep. How are you, sir?
Currently in London. On my holiday here. First week in Israel. Second week here in London. So it's been good. I was in Lincoln last weekend, and then for a 40th, and been enjoying London this week. It's been pretty much seeing friends and tourist attractions every day. So I haven't had time to breathe, but loving it here.
You've been London before, Cam?
I did 5 years here.
Okay, no problem.
So you've got a British passport.
Yeah.
So you can't get me out.
You did 5 years in Shepherd's Bush at the Walkabout Bar, didn't you, mate?
And the slug at Fulham, and maybe the Clapham Walkabout, and maybe the Wimbledon Walkabout, and definitely not all the walkabouts.
Good stuff, yeah. Well, look, it's great to have you on board. I'm sure you'll enjoy the view from the lane tomorrow. And H to the G, how are you this evening? Have you had anything nice for your tea? There's a bit of a
nice from a tea. I had some oven chips. High quality oven chips from Aldi.
Oven?
There's such a thing as high quality oven chips?
Yeah, these are pretty good. But yeah, obviously it's the Easter holidays, so I've not been at work. I've been slumming it at home with my wife and daughter, having a wonderful time. And I was just interested at Cameron's description of like doing 5 years in London as if it was like a prison stretch, when surely it was the other way around. You know, we go to Australia to do our prison terms.
It's a penal colony.
That's where
Very good. Well done.
It is the convict colony that just keeps giving, especially to the cheese room.
Coming back to the scene of the crime.
Yeah, and talking to the scene of the crime, you've met a couple of cheeseheads this week, haven't you? Who have you been in
look like criminals. So Diver and Paul and Franco, met them in the Flying Horse near Liverpool Street the other night and had a few pints, and managed to finally get some merch. We've the T-shirt badges and got a mug and so forth. So finally got it. Thanks, Franco. And it was a good old drink on Wednesday night.
Look at that. Wear it with pride, man. Wear it with pride.
100%.
If
It's coming.
If you would like one of these T-shirts, you are free to join our Patreon, and you're welcome to it. £3 a month, and you get all of that, and you get to converse with Davo, and he will rub your nose in it that he's really good at fantasy football, and you get to speak to Cam and the gang about match day. It is all good fun, so do consider that. Head over to patreon.com/Choosing Podcast and get signed up today. We'd love to have you as part of our community if you're not already. And a massive shout out to the patrons in the chat and the channel members in the chat. Kerry, I can see, is already here this evening, so welcome, Kerry. Of course, YouTube membership gives you priority shout outs as one of the features. You also get beautiful custom emojis, which we probably need to update because Conte is still in there. Tonight, we're going to touch on the Everton game, the latest on Harry Kane's eyelash, preview the bank holiday with the Brighton, and discuss the recent fan base activity, the appointment of 90s techno wizard Moby as chief football officer, plus other Spurs news and fixture predictions. I nearly said financial predictions, but divers down on the show tonight, so we won't have any of those. Let's talk about it if we have to for just a small period of time. Let's talk about Everton. I mean, the less said about it, really, the better. Wasn't there, Davo? I mean, this was probably the highlight of the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was on at 5 a.m. over here, Tuesday morning. And it was just, you know, when that goal, the equaliser went in, it was just such a sense of inevitability about the whole thing. It's like a prototype performance, don't you think? I mean, it was just the thing that really got me was when you're up against 10 men against a team in the bottom three of the Premier League, and you've got three centre-backs still on the pitch, and you don't bring in an attacking player, is just mind-bogglingly stupid.
Deja vu, wasn't it, Cam? We've seen it all before. I know. We were in the chat group at halftime, and HG was like, I can't remember what minute it was, but you were like, "I'm turning it off." You know what happens, and I think we all said exactly the same. Were you feeling like that, Cam, or were you full of the London air and full of optimism?
Well, believe it or not, I was in the train from Lincoln to London, quite literally when the game was on. So my real
that's a mission in itself. I imagine it took you about 8 hours, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it went via Newark, and it was about 2 and a bit hours. So I couldn't get a live feed from it. So I was looking on BBC's refresh, but also your guys' messages, and I'm thinking we're only one up, and they've got 10 men. I was thinking, surely we're going to just ice this game. We're one up. And I thought, I was confident we were going to win. So I put the phone off, was just listening to some Spotify. Then a few minutes later, 1-1. And I'm like, I looked at the messages. I've gone, yep, it happened again.
Oh, no way.
Typical.
No, I'm sorry. I interrupt this broadcast to bring you some dramatic, exciting news that Matt Gibbons will be really happy about. So I've just sent a text message flash up onto my computer. I've won in the football prizes draw this evening the signed Pierre-Emile Højbjerg shirt. Yeah, how do you like those apples, Gibbo?
Does the way it comes in the frame, is there like a right shoulder up like that?
No, the beauty of this is it actually doesn't come in a frame, so you could pose it any way you wish to do so, Dave.
You should do it like that.
Well, I might just give it to Gibbo, to be honest. That'd be a nice thing to do, wouldn't it? For a small fee.
Why don't we get people to vote in the comments section? Should Caller give Gibbo the shirt?
I mean, by all means, start a poll. It's probably not going to mean much, to be honest. I'll be honest with you, but it's.
Caller's not going to listen to a public opinion on anything.
That would be completely against my mantra. I have to be honest, Dave. So yeah. Anyway, let's get back to Everton if we have to. Although I think talking about my brand new bit of merch is more exciting. Look, we don't want to dwell on the game too much, but let's talk about a couple of points. So HG, there's a lot been made of this. A lot of fuss. Stop typing. Give Gibbo the shirt HG and pay attention. There's been a lot made of this in the press, and in the pundits were talking about it at the time. Did Harry make a bit much of this? I mean, it actually looks worse when you look at that still than I thought it was at the time. I thought he just looked like slapped him, but he looks like he's gone full alien claw to the face, face hugger style. So, do you think?
Do I think Harry overreacted? I mean, not particularly. I mean, if he's been scraped in the eye, which it looks like he has been there, I think you would go down. You're certainly not going to just like walk around and what happened. You put your hands to your face and maybe you need to fall to the ground, but I don't know why you wouldn't. If you want the game to be stopped, if nothing else, then the game will be stopped if you fall to the ground holding your head. We all know that. So I haven't really seen a lot of what's gone on in the UK about it because obviously I'm not there and I only read a few things on Twitter. But clearly, people have used as another way of attacking Kane. Rather than the fact that the guy clearly got sent off, was rightly sent off for doing it, and should never have done it. And it wasn't even the first eye poke of the game from an Everton player. So you could be sitting here trying to say that, was this an actual tactic of theirs? Because there's no, if you wanted to push someone in the face, you wouldn't have your fingers like that. So he knows what he's doing. I have never pushed anyone in the face with my fingers curled up as if I'm trying to protect my palm. It's mental. No. There's no reason for Doucouré to do that. And if anything, it should be more than whatever ban he's got. Because I don't understand the logic for it. But, Kane will always be an easy target because, maybe there are various reasons we won't go into. But, Kane will clearly be the obvious target until if and when he leaves.
Sean Dyche was unhappy about Harry Kane's conduct. But he did say, in terms of Doucouré, I'll do my best, Sean Dyche. He certainly doesn't need to apologise. That sounds like Tyson Fury. At the end of the day, he knows you can't raise your hands, said Dyche. No shit, Sherlock. Davo, why is Mr. Kane so unloved by English fans in general? I mean, he seems to get more shit than any other. I mean, Arsenal have got a certain player accused of rape in their midfield, and yet he doesn't get anything like the pelters Kane does. How could that be right?
Well, because I can't really explicitly talk about him and name him in the press because of where we're up to in the court proceedings, and we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. No, I'm happy to go there in terms of what we need to say because, the fact of the matter is you see Mo Salah, you see Fernandes. I think there was the Arsenal player who went out down in the box last weekend for the penalty. They're all at it. But the fact of the matter is Harry Kane plays for Tottenham, and that doesn't suit the BBC, Sky Sports, Talk Sport, the anti-Tottenham agenda that there is, because we're not allowed to have an intergenerational talent like that, number one. It upsets the apple cart. He's not at Liverpool, he's not at Manchester, and he's not a lovable character that is seen puking into a plant pot outside a nightclub at 4 o'clock in the morning, is he? So that's what it is, So I just think it's just, the guy was gouged in the face. Dembele did it to Costa at the Battle of the Bridge. He got a 6-match ban. He should have had the same here, Doucouré, but he wasn't. And it just fits the narrative, the anti-Tottenham narrative of some of the media, which is stacked full of ex-Liverpool, United, and now more and more City players as well. So that's my view on it.
Cam, agree?
Look, I think Kane does know how to engineer a penalty every now and again as well. I had this interesting... I posed this question to my friend, Chelsea mate, last weekend. I think it's that hatred towards Spurs, but I think the normal population of the English, because my mate's a mad Chelsea fan, said that, look, he's incredible, but there's just a general gist because he plays for Spurs that you've just got to... just got to banter him out because we're still supposedly a banter club in their eyes. So he's tarnished or tarred with that brush, even though he acknowledges that he is a generational player for our club. Because I find it strange. There's kids in Australia wearing Kane shirts, left, right, and centre. Not heaps, but like you got your Salah shirts, but I still see a fair amount of Kane shirts about around Melbourne. But it's quite strange in this country that they don't appreciate the freakish unicorn generational player talent that they've got running around.
Wait, Cameron, does that mean that Sydney people, they won't wear Kane shirts? They're all about John Terry and that kind of play. Melbourne are just more refined when it comes to understanding
Earthy,
football
down to
geniuses,
earth.
whereas that Sydney mob,
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you on a fact base is that there's a member of this household who wears a Romero shirt on his back. He's constantly slide tackling me in the living room and disappears to Argentina every 4 weeks for that reason.
Does anyone in anyone's house wear a Højbjerg shirt? Højbjerg shirt, I should say.
I will be.
Gibbo,
give him the shirt.
Give him the shirt.
No.
He'll buy you a Winks one in return.
I mean, yeah, absolutely not. Let's be really clear. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, everyone's got their price. Don't get me wrong, but when there's only one person bidding on it, it's not going to be much of an auction, is it? If I do that. Anyway, regardless of all of that, do we need to say any more, Davo, about Everton away?
No, but I think it's just the only thing to say is I just felt left field. No matter where you are in the world, whether you go to the game or you're the other side of the world, or it's that Tottenham, as any football club, gives you those beautiful highs that you love in life and really, really piss you off. And I was really pissed off after that. The inevitability, sure. We've taken 2 points from Southampton and Everton away.
Yeah.
Well, that is perfectly true. That is absolutely true. Well, look, I mean, I suppose the good news is that we've got the chance to put it right at the weekend. We're still in a good position. Does any of you guys think we're going to get top 4? By the way, just raise your hand if you do. Is that a hand raised, Cam? Is that a hand raised there?
That's his thinking face. Look at that. He's concentrating.
Yeah, I don't think so. What's going on here? Wrong button. There we go. Obviously, we play Brighton this weekend at the Lane. Cam's in my seat. Very excited. It's a good crowd around me, Cam. So, yeah, they're a good bunch of people that make you feel welcome.
Nice.
Yeah, look, we're still ahead of them. We've still got more points on the board. We've still got more games played. Well, what else do we think? What else do we think about this? I mean, Brighton, they're a good team, aren't they? And De Zerbi, I don't know if any of you guys caught the show with Sandro last night. It was excellent, and it's available now on YouTube Catch Up, or the downloadable audio podcast available from wherever you get your podcast from. And I didn't know this, but Sandro is sort of being mentored by De Zerbi. Okay. So he's hooked up with him at Brighton when he's been over in this country, been down to observe training sessions, and Sandro's obviously doing his badges. And he thinks that De Zerbi is the man for the Spurs job, thinks he's an excellent manager. Let's get some initial impressions from you guys. HG, how good a job has De Zerbi done since he's come in?
I mean, obviously they're scoring more goals than they did under Potter, and they look a pretty good bet for a European spot. Obviously they can still dream of Champions League, but even for them to be in the Europa League would be astounding. No one expected Chelsea or Liverpool to be where they are, but for Brighton to, semi-finals of the FA Cup as well, it's a pretty good season for them. So that they've got a lot to play for, and De Zerbi, again, none of us will really know how much of it was done by Potter, because a lot of that team is obviously Potter, but they've got the young striker Ferguson's come into the side. I haven't really seen much of him live, but I saw some of the goals that he scored this season, and there was one in particular that I was like, okay, I mean, it may have been Grimsby in the FA Cup, I think, but it was a quality goal. Like, he brings it down with his left foot and then shifts his body so he can put it first time into the corner with his right foot. Like, you don't see that from 18-year-olds. You don't see that from anyone. For the fact that he's a big, strong number 9, that's clearly something that has given Brighton an extra dimension. But for De Zerbi, yeah, I mean, I think he's in a pretty good position, and I don't see any reason for him to leave it. Unless Brighton finish 8th and have nothing apart from Premier League, then he might be interested. But if he's got some kind of European football, he'll be the first manager to take Brighton into Europe. I'm pretty certain that's true. And he's obviously, things can only get better for him. I don't think that even if he left Brighton in a year or two, they'll still be in a pretty good position, and his reputation will have been enhanced by being at Brighton. Who knows where Calder's gone? He's probably gone for a slash. So it's weird. Like the Brighton game, I don't know. I mean, when you looked at the table as we saw it, I'll see if I can get it back up here now. Hang on a sec. No, I don't know how to do that. Anyway.
Do you want me to try?
Yeah, try and get the table up for us.
Hang on.
But no, it's just like, looking at Brighton, they've got games in hand.
Yeah.
I know that they've got to play us. I mean, the good thing about Spurs is that we may well have dropped 4 points in the last 2 games, and we clearly have dropped them. Like, they were ours, they were in our pocket, and we let go. But you win tomorrow, and suddenly you're 7 points clear of Brighton.
Yeah.
And they've played 2 games fewer, but one of those games is against Newcastle. I know that for a fact, and I think that obviously with the cup final coming up, that they've got to play Man United at some point as well, in the league, not just the cup. So it is kind of, I feel like we said this last year. There were a couple of games, actually Brighton being one of them, where we didn't get results and we thought it was going to screw us over, and in the end it didn't. And maybe, like, losing not winning the last 2 games, if we beat Brighton, there'll be a bit more hope and a bit more expectation that we could still finish top 4, because with Newcastle and Man United still to come, it's still in our hands. That doesn't mean I believe it's going to happen, but it would be nice if we somehow fluke 3 points tomorrow, then we can start dreaming again a little bit.
So that if Brighton get into Europe, it's not the first time that they would have hosted European football, of course, because the 1995 Intertoto Cup, Tottenham played at the Goldstone Ground. And
were you there?
I was there, actually. I had been out on the Friday night in Brighton at the Zap Club, and then on Sunday we went to the Goldstone Ground. And do you know who was playing for Tottenham that day?
Alan Pardew.
Very good. Yes, Alan Pardew.
Yeah.
And
He even played for Spurs. I can't even remember that.
They got in. They brought him in for the summer because they had to play the Intertoto, and we had like Gerard McMahon, Chris Day in goal, all the greats. Francis was there, and we were at the Goldstone.
The first example of Tottenham taking a European trophy seriously that they didn't actually care about. This is what we've seen. This was the start of that culture where, if it's not the best, we're not interested. But pre-season tournaments, we'll come last in that. It was only 20 years later that we started taking the Audi Cup seriously, and look where it's got us. Peace Cup, Audi Cup, pre-season trophies are our thing.
I think we got spanked in Germany at the end, didn't we? There was
8-0.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
8-0. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's hardcore Tottenham fans. I've been at the Intertoto. So's John. There you go.
The Intertoto Cup, the precursor to the European Super League, budget edition. So look, I might have to dash off. My daughter's been sick apparently, so that's
okay. Sorry to hear.
I wasn't going for a slash, thanks HG. Brighton versus Spurs. If you look at some of the pre-match form, we've actually played 24 home league games against them and no draws. So I don't think the money's on a draw tomorrow. Won 17 of those and lost 7. Look, I think personally, Cam, I'm coming to you next on this. Being the Aussie enthusiast who absolutely will be just like, I'm just happy to be here, mate. I'm just happy to be here. Just, and give them a cheer from us. It's as HG says, it's in our hands. There's every reason to be optimistic. Apart from the fact that we've got
Say that.
We can do it, can't we? It's not completely inconceivable that we could finish top four. It's not completely inconceivable that we could beat Brighton this weekend.
The form would say Brighton. I like Brighton this season. I would also say that I'm going there tomorrow. Yes, I'm obviously appreciative, but I'm aware that it could be a cagey game. I do think after last week's efforts, there's probably hopefully some harsh, honest talking to within that locker room. Because I'll tell you what, after what I read the other night from the Everton game, I was hoping Stellini's got to actually lift his act and have some form of a different approach to tomorrow. So I would hope that we come out all guns blazing because I want to remember tomorrow's game. I don't want to go out of the stadium with a loss.
Yeah, no, well, 15 of Brighton's past 18 Premier League goals in London have been scored in the second half. So bear that in mind. So we do seem to concede quite a lot of late goals as well. So that there's always that to come. They're now unfortunately unbeaten in 7 consecutive Premier League away games, extending the longest ongoing run in the division, with only Arsenal, Manchester City, and Aston Villa registering more points in 2023 than them. So, as you say, Brighton are the form team. How do we think they'll line up, Davo? Talk us through it.
Well, we've got a slide to show that if you'd like to.
Well, there was the cue for you to put it up, actually. But
my apologies. Yeah. My apologies. I've only just I've had a new skill tonight, learning how to upload slides and put them on. It's been
about time you pulled your weight, really.
I agree. I don't do much, do I? I reckon they're going to line up in a 4-2-3-1 formation. That's what I reckon, with Ferguson up top. So, you've got the old scenario here where we've got the old 3-4-3, and are we going to get outdone in the midfield? So is Stellini going to do a tactical revolution and stick Sarr in the midfield and play 3 in the middle? Not likely, is it?
Unlikely, I would say. Yeah. HG Dangerman. Then what are you saying? I mean, McAllister obviously made his name at the World Cup. Really, when I look at that lineup, I don't really. I mean, Mitoma's setting the world on fire, but other than that, they've got quite a lot of the players who were there last season, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, this is it. But they're all technically good on the ball. I mean, I watched Pascal Gross when he played in German football for Ingolstadt, and he was the number 10 there. He's obviously playing a bit deeper now, but he's comfortable on the ball no matter where he is on the pitch. And that goes for McAllister, that goes for Mitoma, and it goes for a lot of their players, really. Like, I don't think Veltman is a particularly good player. I didn't rate him at Ajax, but he went to Brighton for like £1 million. I mean, not much money. And now he plays pretty regularly in that right back slot, despite being, for me, relatively limited. He's not the attacking right back that you might expect to see in the Premier League these days. He'll probably slot across and play in a back 3 at times, with Estupinian as the left wing back and Solly March as the right wing back. So they've got options to move things around. But those players, more than anything, they are comfortable on the ball. They are technically sound, and I mean, not just sound. I mean, they are good technically, and they're not worried about getting the ball in tight situations. They are comfortable as a team. I think their keeper's a bit ropey. I don't really know what Jason Steele has done to suddenly become their number 1, because I think he was their number 3 for a long time. And he's got shit hair as well, Jason Steele.
He sounds like a 1970s detective.
He does, really, doesn't he? It's just, I don't know. But yeah, so the Brighton side, like they have the ability to beat us, and if they keep the ball, which they can very easily do that, they may well beat us. But again, you hope that our talisman striker will come up with the goods and will somehow maybe sneak a 2-1 win. But I mean, last year it was 0-0 going into the 90th minute before they scored. So you just never know with Brighton, but they're a very good side who can beat anyone and have proven since they came to the Premier League, certainly under Potter, that they're capable of giving the best sides a really tough game.
No, can't be. I've heard Potter's shit. So that's not true. Dave, as you've already highlighted, in a way in which only you can, the danger here is we're outgunned in midfield, is it not?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the issue that we've had all year. It's like you know how we talk about the inevitability of Tottenham. I think we could do the inevitability of this show all season, talking about how we've been found out because we get done in the midfield. I mean, you look at the game last season at home. I remember it was a lunchtime kickoff. About 9:30 here, we were really excited. I think it was off the back of the Villa away game and the Newcastle at home game, and we had that momentum, and we really stunk the place out with the performance. And Cucurella had Kulusevski in his back pocket, like he did at Stamford Bridge earlier this season.
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean that was one of Kulusevski's worst games last season. Whereas this season he's only had 2 games against Southampton. So he's hoping that Southampton stays up for next season. So it's disappointing. But I mean, I think the interesting thing about Brighton for me. So I was reading in the Daily Telegraph, Tottenham Loving online about Brighton and Paul Barber. So Paul Barber used to be a director at Tottenham and has worked closely with Levy and is good mates with Levy. And they're basically talking about the fact that they have this system that pretty much anyone in terms of the coaching staff, high up in the non-playing staff and the team, that they have succession planning in place for everybody. So that if there is an instance of obviously, the day would come that Potter would go, that they've got people on board who would look at getting in a manager who plays the style that they have and in relation to the managers they have, and everything's perfectly aligned. And I think that's a very interesting model that they've got. And it would be nice to see something like that at Tottenham as well.
I mean, I think the difference is that Brighton understand their place in the food chain a bit more, and they know that their better players will get nabbed by bigger clubs, whether it's in England or anywhere. Like McAllister is going to go on a free transfer in the summer, and I suspect he's going to go to Spanish football. I don't expect him to stay in the Premier League. So there is that kind of thing that's the difference, I think, with Brighton and Spurs, is that Spurs, we don't want to see ourselves as that. Having a succession plan is all well and good, but we've tried that and have failed because the person we thought was going to leave never did. And then we lost out on the development of Foyt because of it. So it's going to be a tough one for Spurs because, I think we've talked about on previous shows, revenue-wise, we want to see ourselves as a final destination team.
Yeah.
But when it comes to it, the succession plan, let's say that we think we thought last summer that we were going to sell Kane this year. So you bring Richarlison in and you hope he has a season to kind of get used to it so he can become the main man. Well, for various reasons, that hasn't happened, right? Because we had a manager this year that was focused on this season and only this season, and understandably so. And so if I'm Richarlison and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm going to have another season as Kane's backup before maybe I get to be that guy. So there's this idea that, we've in that case, I think Richarlison and Kane are a pretty good 2 options to go as your central striker, but when you only play with one and that one never gets dropped, again, the succession plan is what? We should be buying Richarlison this summer to spend a year with Kane before Kane leaves? I think when players leave Tottenham, there's a very good chance that they'll leave when they want to. Right? I think that's what we've seen. So it's really difficult to plan a succession, to have a succession plan when you don't really know when people are going to go. None of us sat here last summer and thought, now is the time to sell Son. Nobody thought that.
Yeah,
and here we are, 9 months later. Oh, Spurs are just terrible at not selling players at the wrong time. But you couldn't predict what happened. You couldn't
100%,
have.
yeah.
So it's very difficult for Spurs that they are stuck, I think, between many positions that all sense, but they all have flaws to them. And so I don't know. Like Brighton are extremely well run, but if I'm a Premier League club that's looking at Brighton, like Chelsea aren't looking at the way that Brighton's run, Liverpool aren't looking at the way that Brighton's run. Like they'll see the good things about it, but what they're looking to do is nab those people. So the director of football at Newcastle is the guy who used to be at Brighton. And we signed Bissouma, and there'll be a bunch of players this year. Caicedo almost went to Arsenal in January and wanted to go. That, I think, is what the bigger clubs are looking at for Brighton. It's like, thank you for doing the work, for proving that these players will happily give you lots of money to take them off your hands, but maybe they're not so fussed about creating that structure. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be, but I just think that perhaps those teams that are slightly more successful than Spurs aren't so bothered about having a succession plan with their players. So what are Spurs going to be? Are we going to be a rich Brighton, or are we going to continue trying to be a Man United or a Chelsea or whatever?
I had this exact discussion with my Chelsea mate last weekend. When Potter came in, he brought his chief recruiting scouts over with him to Chelsea, which I found surprising because obviously when Potter came over, there was a slight buzz that he was coming over from Brighton. And I thought it was only him. But there was also a lot of the recruitment team from Brighton because Chelsea was so... He was telling me the names and everything that came to Chelsea in terms of their scouting team. And I thought, well, they just gutted Brighton of all their capability of getting talent. So it's interesting you pull that up. Now, I don't know if those guys are staying there or if they follow Potter out the door. I assume they stay. But, they obviously functionally want to emulate to some extent or get the good people out from Brighton to obviously emulate the success elsewhere.
I suspect Brighton's chairman is a professional gambler, right? And to be a professional gambler, to be a professional gambler, you understand the game you're playing.
Yeah.
It's not about being lucky. It's about understanding that these are the odds. This is what I'm going to do. Like various Spurs fans sat, we did shows about it, I'm sure, when he sacked Houghton. Right, and Houghton had kept them up 2-3 seasons ago, and everyone was like, "You're sacking Houghton? How dare Brighton think? Who do they think they are? They should be happy that Houghton kept them up." Whereas the chairman was like, "Well, I don't want that. I want Brighton to improve." And so he went and got Potter from Swansea. He'd only been there a season. And they invested in younger players, or they've decided they want to play a certain type of football because they feel that playing pretty football has a better chance of keeping them up. And I suspect that's true. Like very few kick and rush teams that are down at the bottom stay up. You stay up if you're a kick and rush team if you've got a goal scorer. Brighton have never had that, weirdly, and yet they've stayed up relatively comfortably every season since they made that decision. So I feel as if if they're trying to build the club, you'd imagine that's what Tony Bloom is trying to do. He wants Brighton to be, let's say, maybe the Leipzig of English football, because he knows that they can't compete, revenue-wise with the big six, right? And they can't compete with West Ham or Everton. I mean, they have more money than Brighton, but what they can do is, use what they have incredibly smartly. And I mean, we saw at Spurs, there were under Pochettino, we were making 150 million less than the clubs, the bigger clubs. I mean, in some of them, we're still making that much less, but we were beating them on the pitch by making smart decisions, and that's what Brighton have done. And so, it's weird for me that when I looked up Evan Ferguson today and I realised that he was 18 and basically 18 and a half. I don't think he's 18 and a half yet, and suddenly he's the main man for a team that's fighting for a Champions League spot. Like they're not going to bring Will back into the side. Like it's Ferguson's job now. And the guy who came on, was it Enciso? I mean, it sounds like a made-up name, but he's obviously young as well. And they had the poor guy who used to play in Austria, Mwepu, who had to retire because of a heart condition. That came at them out of the blue, and it hasn't seemed to change anything. Brighton is still getting results. In fact, they're getting better results. So... yeah, you look at Brighton and you say, yes, they're obviously doing a lot of things well, but do we want to have that? Do we want to look at young players from South America and try and get them in? Is that even possible now that Brexit has happened? Can we bring those young players in across the world? in many cases, I'm not sure we can anymore. So it's about, I think, I know that sounds obvious, about identifying the right players. That's it.
Yes.
Brighton understood. They understood the
100%.
pool they were looking at, and they picked players from that pool that have turned out to be extremely good. There's nothing stopping Spurs from doing that, but our pool is probably bigger, and we should embrace that. Not say, well, these guys. I mean, and Ndombele is probably the perfect example. Like, there's no way Brighton could fish in that. We could, and we did, and for various reasons it hasn't worked out. But it's down on us to make better decisions, not become, a Waitrose version of Brighton.
We'll look at McAllister.
Sorry, just to welcome JP. So, in keeping with the fact that we're having a little bit of an Aussie takeover at Tottenham, which we'll talk about shortly with the appointment of Moby. Welcome, JP.
Thanks, everybody. I think we got one host out with sick children, swapping in with the other one who had sick children. So we'll just keep that rotation running around all evening, and we'll be great.
Yep, and I think we've got teenagers stirring in the other room at the moment. So just
right, there's teenagers staring at Tottenham Hotspur as well, so we're all good.
Right, Dave, before we move on, I do want to bring this point up because I see that it's there, right? Look, I don't like the B word as much as anyone else, but that changed the rules as to, and it's been stopped. So those European players, those young like McAllister, who has, I think, some kind of European passport. It's not a British one, but that was what enabled him to come over. Right? There are rules in place where you can't bring young starlets over unless they hit certain points. You get points for playing in a top 5 league, points for coming from a certain country. But the days of the latest Panamanian wonder kid, they're gone. It is not possible unless they have some kind of even an EU passport now doesn't help you. They'd all need to be Irish, which, maybe you can find some out. But sadly, right, and this is nothing to do with the political thing, it's just a fact of life that by changing the rules we chose to make, that clubs now can't go out and do it. Like, we brought Scotsy in, I think, right before the Brexit deadline, because it was the last time we could do it. We wouldn't be able to have him at Spurs as a youth player. We brought him in before the deadline happened, which I think was end of January 2020 maybe. But so yeah, it is part of it. Sadly, it really is.
Okay, so just a few in terms of just finishing off the discussion about the Brighton game. Just a few things from our interim manager Stellini in the press conference. So in terms of team news, Richarlison is back training outdoors, apparently, which is important. But he will not be available to face Brighton. He's going well, and he could be ready for the next game. On what he wants from Spurs, we have to find a way to be Tottenham and play football which is strong in the tackle, strong with pressure, and strong with the ball. That's a lot of strongs. And in terms of where we're up to at the moment, Stellini thinks injuries have derailed plans for Spurs to evolve. We don't have enough players, as we have a lot of injuries. Perhaps the type of players we cannot change us tactically. We were preparing something different in the past month, but now we have to be patient with 9 games to go. So, any thoughts on our interim manager's call to arms?
So we've heard this before, though, right? Like, over the World Cup break, there was talk about, from Decky, I think it was, about how we were trying out new formations and we were going to try and play slightly differently. There was talk about him playing a little bit more centrally in midfield, but then nothing happened. Like, if we were doing this a month ago, we still had players to change stuff up a month ago. Why did nothing happen? Like, I don't know. It feels like the old content. If people are something different, say, yeah, I'm working on that.
Working on his internet.
Did you lose me?
Yes.
We lose you, or we lose me?
I think we lost
Who
me.
We lost you, mate. JP, that is.
Yeah. But yeah, it just feels like another deflection tactic that he's picked up of Conte. If I get questioned, I'll say, yeah, I'm working on it, but it's outside of my control. I can't actually show you it. There doesn't seem to be any like thought pattern at the minute that we can follow to say, yes, there is something different we're planning on, because we haven't seen any evidence of it all year.
Well, what's Stellini's incentive? He knows he's gone within, 8 to 9 games. So, go.
And Stellini's not going to change anything up because he knows that Conte will get another job and he'd like to be his second in charge when he goes there. If he changes stuff up and said, yeah, Conte had it wrong all this time, well, then he's shooting himself in the foot for the possibility of that next job. So we shouldn't expect anything to change. And the more I kind of think about it, keeping Stellini around was
mistake.
Probably the wrong decision. Yeah, just put Mason in charge because he's not going with Conte to the next job.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. What's his incentive? I think he's just going to keep the status quo and just keep things as is till the end of the season, which is frustrating. I don't know what Stellini's played historically when he was sole manager and got sacked. I don't know, but could he just think as is?
Allegedly.
Oh, what? What?
Well, he got wrapped up in all of that Italian stuff.
What in terms of Stellini and his the match fixing stuff? That's absolutely right. Yeah. So tomorrow's game. So Cam, it's your first game at the stadium, correct?
The new one, correct? Yeah.
How excited are you?
Reasonably excited, but I would definitely say tempered by the fact our form is really SH1T. So I know I'm realistic going in, knowing that I'd be happy with a draw because I know Brighton is a competent team at the present time. I'll be having a few pre-game drinks with hopefully a few cheese room people, and I think that's where the excitement will be because I have a feeling it will be definitely an arm wrestle tomorrow. Definitely.
Okay. So before we move on to the next topic, I think maybe we should get predictions for the score tomorrow. HG.
I'm torn between what I think should happen and what I want to happen. Spurs have been that kind of animal where you think they're going to get beat and they don't. I think, no, logic says Brighton will win. So if I'm going to be positive, I will say 2-2.
Okay, 2-2.
Oh, Kerry. I agree with Kerry. I didn't see that, but I agree with Kerry.
Okay, so Kerry, we're just on to predicting the score of the Brighton game, caller.
Yeah, I know that, and I can also see I'm absolutely surrounded by Australians, mate. So,
oh yeah, mate.
Yeah, fair dinkum. You carry on.
You're such a bogan.
Yeah. So, okay, so my prediction's going to be 2-1 Brighton. Did you say 2-1 Brighton, HC?
No, 2-2.
All right, I'm going 2-1 Brighton. Sorry.
I'm going a Desmond. I actually think there will be goals in this game. I actually changed my prediction from earlier on and going, this could actually open up to be a 2-2.
I'm going 3-1 Brighton. Honestly, like, they're playing really good football and I can't see us beating them. I hope I'm wrong, but I cannot see us beating them.
Where do you think they break us down, JP?
The same place we've been broken down all year, midfield and against our defence.
Is it my turn? Is it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, you're in.
We're going to win. I think we can win. Look, the danger, because I've got to provide some element of positivity here. Look, I got a sick daughter being sick everywhere. It's got to get better. Things have got to get better. I honestly think that Brighton are playing a lot better than us. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But we've got the ability. We've got match winners in our side. There's no reason on paper we can't get a result. I'm going to say we're going to win.
But on grass, we might struggle.
Yeah. We've got a good
I'm gonna
chance
say-
of winning the go-karting before the match.
Yeah, I'm going to say we're going to win 3-1. I'm going to say we're going to win 3-1. And the biggest worry for me is that the tactics are non-flexible. If we switch up the tactics, I think we can win, and I think he will. By the way, I think he will. He's got nothing to lose, as you've already covered, I'm sure. So yeah, why not? Let's go with a 3-1 win and a very happy Cam tomorrow.
He could lose favour with Conte. Right, like if he changes things up and we go on a run, suddenly Conte's not looking for he was looking for a different assistant manager next time around. Like the thing is, Calder, you're right. We can win, right? I think we all know that Spurs can beat anyone. We've beaten Man City at home.
We have better players,
but individuals will get beaten by teams. That's true. So they are a better team than us. They are playing better football than us. In every conceivable measure, they should beat us. But we have, one of the best strikers in the competition, and you just never know. So I understand we can win, but no. If you're basing it on everything else apart from one Harry Kane-sized elephant, then no, Brighton should. I mean, I went for a draw, and I thought I was being positive.
No, we'll win. We'll win. I think we're going to switch it up. I think the team are going to come out with a point to prove. I think, look, the Everton result, let's be honest, we should have won that game. They just stopped playing as soon as Everton went down to 10 men, and it's absolutely unbelievable. If we'd have carried on like we were playing, if we'd have switched up the tactics a bit, we'd have won. Everton were crap.
It was a belting goal, that though. You got to admit that was a great goal.
Was it? I mean, should Hugo have not done better?
Look, if Eric Dyer scores from 30 yards, we're all going, what a fluke. So it was a fluke that Michael Caine did what he did, but he meant to do it. He was trying to do it. The fact he did it was like, oh, okay. But
he said afterwards it was a fluke. They go, it just sat up nicely. I mean, look, if he doesn't do that, we win, and it's a different story, isn't it? It's a bit like Southampton away. If the penalty isn't awarded, which was never a penalty, by the way, in the last minute, we win, and we'd be 4 points better off than we are. So we've got the capability. We should have a little bit of self-belief. I understand why everyone is pissed off because the football's been turgid. But we're still in it to win it. As HG said before, we've got all of those teams around us to play. Like, it's in our hands. We could finish top four. The players are good enough to finish top four. It's just the application. And if they decide to turn up like they did against Man City, we have done it this season. Leicester as well at home, anyway. Away, better not spoken about. We can do it. We can do it. So I choose to believe that we're going to, just to be contrary to everyone else. In reality, I think we're probably going to get dicked. But that's a different story.
Nice argument, though.
Yeah, you've got to try and put it out there, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as you do frequently. I've got to ask you, we're moving on from Brighton. Is this you?
Yeah, this is this what I'm suggesting as a discussion point is the.
No, I meant, did you start this petition?
Oh, did I start a petition? I've donated it. You can go on. I've donated some money to it to be distributed more widely. Yes, I have. I didn't start it, no, but I have made a very minor financial contribution for it. So I think that what we can have as a discussion point now is that tomorrow there is every potential for the stadium to turn toxic, and not just because it's Cam's first game there. And I think, and also Cam, you do look a bit like Levy's brother-in-law who holds up the sub sign as well. You've got quite a few.
The fact that he's got a shiny head, that's a bit harsh.
Well, you know,
So
it
it's
does look.
secret agent Cam in here for Daniel Levy. The cheese room have been on the
100%.
payroll all along.
100%.
Oh, there we
Yep.
go. That's right. So I think the question is that if we lose tomorrow, the potential for the stadium to turn toxic was the next discussion point. And
Yeah.
so I would like to first of all put my fishing line out to our man in Vienna and ask him. His statement is petitions are a very English thing and they're useless. Over to you, HG.
It's true. I mean, not just English, they're very British. I'm signing a petition, give over. Oh, it's an online one. Still won't work. Petitions don't work. The pen is mightier than the sword. Yeah, once you've won with the sword, then you can write books about it and you can control history. No. Petitions are a waste of time. I'm happy for people to sign them, but I won't. It's a waste of time. Nothing's going to change. If you want to remove Daniel Levy as chairman, sadly, well, yeah, I'm not going to talk about what you probably would need to do because I don't want to see that either. Like, it's just an unfortunate fact of life.
Well, as I don't know,
Like a protest against ticket prices, I'm all about that, right? But protest to get rid of someone, like, in my eyes, there is no feasible way that you can get rid of Daniel Levy because Daniel Levy is in charge of that decision, no one else, right?
Well,
it's not like there's no vote. Right, it's not as if we can all club together and say, no, we want this guy to be the chairman. He's a part owner of the club. He will decide when he wants to go. And I don't think that a protest of 1,000 people will change his mind. And I'm not even sure a protest of 10,000 people would change his mind. And a petition certainly won't.
Well, there you go.
Can I come back on that if you don't mind?
Would you like me to remove this slide so I can see your beautiful face, and then I'll raise it again?
Ideally, not for the rest of us, if that's okay.
Very good. So petitions. Obviously, history has taught us, the Battle of Hastings, World War II, World War One wasn't decided by a petition. I totally get and understand that. But I think
wonder where this is going.
No. And I'm really, we're not going to have a discussion about the ownership, please, because I'm bored of it as well. But I do think that in life, and everyone's got a choice, and I'm not saying actually saying this, is that you can either, you don't agree and you think they're doing a good job, fair enough, everyone's choice. You can sign a petition or you don't sign a petition, and you can take part in a demo or anything like that. Do I think signing a petition will remove him? Of course not, no. Do I think that the demonstrations are going to remove him? No. What's going to remove him is something like 4.5 billion quid, which I don't have here at the moment, nor ever will. But I think that if in life you're not happy about something from the point of view of making a statement or things like that, then you can do something or not do something. It's your choice. And I know that you're not saying this, HG, but I do think that there is a tendency for some people to mock others who are trying to do something about it and make some changes and stuff like that. And I take my hat off to them. And that's regardless of whether I agree with them or not.
Well, I think we all recognise on the cheese room the democratic right of protest, as well as the democratic right to choose your own view and not go along with the crowd. But it would only be right to mention this. So there is a call to go and support the Levy Out cause. There are big hopes that the protests will attract more than 20 people this time. Cam, will you be getting there early to take part in this?
Well, I was going to go to Brixton Market in the morning, and I'm seeing it's at 11 a.m., so that's a bit early. So I think I'll be a bit too late for it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the game starts 4 hours later.
Yeah.
Like, what you protest for 4 hours? Do you go inside the club shop if it's raining? I don't know. Like weirdly, I feel like a protest inside the stadium would be more valid if you're going to do it. And actually make a point where people can see that, because that will go around the world. But yeah, I don't know. Like I mean, Devo's right. Like I'm totally pro protests. I'm anti petitions because I don't think they work at all. But a protest is fine. but I'm just not sure a protest works. But that makes more sense to me because you're physically involved in it. Signing your name on a piece of paper, the paper gets thrown in the bin. That's it, done.
Yeah.
JP, you behind this? JP, are you there?
Is he frozen?
No.
No.
Sorry, I've dropped out for a minute there. I missed your question.
Oh, that's very convenient. JP, are you behind this?
I am very much on the fence. I'm not, passionately ENIC out, but at the same time, I believe that we probably need new owners if we're going to move forward as a club. From what we've seen of the protests so far, I don't think they're going to have any impact on Daniel Levy making a decision to sell or not. And that's just because, as we've said before, Daniel Levy owns the club. He doesn't listen to anything that's going on outside of his four walls. So why would he? But if people feel this strongly about it, then this is the best way to make that known. And I agree with whether it was Dave or HG earlier, that doing it outside the club before a game is going to have limited impact. If you want to do something, get a big group together, be well organised and do it inside the ground.
Yes, 100%. That's one thing I'm puzzled about with Tottenham is our fan base is very apathetic. Now, I think that obviously, look, they've got the ground. There's a lot of good things that ENIC's done over the years, and we've gone over this many times. But I think most fans would accept a change that would be beneficial for the club, whether it's a billionaire or something come in there. But I just think people are just resigned to the fact that Levy is just continually going to be here, and that maybe there's an apathy that comes with that. Because I do think everybody on this panel, amongst others, would want change. They want strategy, they want a direction, they want changes at various levels to enhance the chances of winning silverware in the future, because we haven't had that under this regime, or maybe just one trophy, that is. So it's a bit of a weird one at the moment because we've just been given this brand new stadium by the ownership. So it's a bit of a strange one. And I agree, if you're going to do that, if you're going to actually put your balls on the line, you've got to do it in the stadium to attract that groundswell. But doing it outside, it's a bit timid to me.
So, you go.
I think the atmosphere will turn as the inward is toxic if we're not doing very well on the pitch, and then there's a good chance you'll hear lots of Levy out chants at Brighton. But for me, the way the things turn against Levy is that protest inside the stadium completely, as I've said all along. And, the whole of the South Stand, the North Stand, the West Stand, and the East Stand singing, we want Levy out, simultaneously and not in just little clusters. And I think it does require organisation. Look, I don't think any of us particularly are in love with Mr. Levy. I think that's fair to say. I think, and quite frankly, apart from Steve Diver, and he's not here. And quite frankly, I would love him to leave, and if we can hasten that in any way, I would be absolutely behind that. But I do believe that the lack of organisation and I suppose clear goals and strategy is a problem for me with what I see. I see a lot of YouTubers shouting off, getting very angry, and everyone else is a twat except me because I've got my view and that's it. And I'm not turning this into a debate on the ownership because I think we're all pretty aligned on what we'd like the ownership to be. But it's for me, it just needs progression, and it needs a clear strategy and maybe some new leadership, because the people who are trying to get things done just can't do it. I mean, in the same way that Daniel Levy can't deliver Spurs a trophy, there's no way the people at the head of the Levy out movement can claim that they're in any way, shape or form efficient or effective.
I think the biggest problem with it at the moment is that even within the ENIC out movement, there seems to be a lot of division and kind of yelling at each other. So one of the benefits of bringing it inside of the stadium is you immediately unify people behind the one decision that we all unified in is we don't think that this group are capable of moving us forward. The rest of what you think around it is almost irrelevant as long as we've got a clear set of goals that are core across everyone that we can all move forward with. And so bringing it inside the stadium to one point will help unify people behind them.
Yeah.
So, would you mind just bringing up this thing about this group? So, in terms of kind of the question about, and I know there's a typo on there before you say anything, HD, which I have actually messaged them and pointed out to them. So there's this group called Change for Tottenham, which is, as it says here, it's not ENIC or AL, and it's just a platform for Spurs fans to express their views. And, they are, I think they're organising a march in a couple of weeks' time. And it might be something that's actually more around the middle ground in terms of, as it says here, seeking to find a common ground in the fan base worldwide as well. Because I think, everyone's comments here tonight, I agree with all of them from the point of view of there is a certain tendency amongst the kind of ENIC out, Levy out, where it gets very personal and offensive in terms of what's on YouTube channels and on Twitter as well. And they would surely argue that ENIC in are the same thing as well, etc., etc. But the reality of the situation is, and I agree with all of you, is that if in the unfortunate event that Brighton are tonking us on the weekend, a director of football was suspended from footballing activities. We're on to our 4th or 5th manager in however many years. We're obviously seeing that lot down the road are going to win the league. It all makes this whole melting pot where you are going to get really, spontaneous mutiny from the point of view of if we're not playing well on the weekend, it could go toxic very quickly. And it's kind of like the stadium and what I've noticed watching the telly in the middle of the night or watching it blind first thing in the morning, that, even the Leicester game at home, they were booed off. It was 2-2 at half time. It was an exciting game. And I don't understand that there seems to be a little bit more sense of entitlement now about sense amongst the fan base since we've moved into the stadium.
I mean, I think a lot of that is down to ticket prices, simply.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much more tickets are
Oh, bloody
in the new
expensive
stadium
at the
compared
Lane,
to
though.
before. Well, I mean, this
really
is it. I
They
don't
were
know
like
how much
50,
more
50.
expensive they are.
Not a lot more. Not a
No,
lot
but
more.
the point is that when you've been sold something, right? This stadium will help us challenge. And although the stadium has brought in revenue, it hasn't helped us challenge. And so the people who are bringing in that revenue, certainly match day revenue, they're the ones who want to get something in return. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, living in Austria, I don't do that, right? So I don't have as much skin in the game as those who are spending an awful lot of money to go and watch football at Spurs. So I am full on their side that, like when Spurs came out in the week and said that they wouldn't raise ticket prices or season ticket prices, that's great. But are they going to raise like matchday ticket prices? Is it just season ticket prices? The ticket prices are already too much. And so when you know that, like from my perspective, like I don't know, I mean, what is matchday revenue each year? Like as a total? Can anyone remember what it was?
As a percentage or a cash figure?
No, just as a total amount of money that the matchday revenue brings in from
remember.
tickets.
Can't remember.
It's not that much.
Steve mentioned that.
No, exactly. It's not that much in the scheme of things compared to how much revenue we make overall. It's not that much. So if you said to me, Spurs could make £20 million a year less if they cut ticket prices by whatever would need to be done, brilliant. I'm okay with that. I would rather people pay less to go and watch Spurs than have an extra 20 million in revenue each year when we know most of the revenue doesn't come from those people who are going to the stadium. I think that would help things a lot. Like, yes, it's a bit backward to say, I want less money coming into the club, but we're making bad decisions with the money that we have, and the people who are there to support the club, in theory, are the ones that are frustrated the most. They're the ones who are mostly, like, we're talking about a toxic atmosphere. That's not going to come from the Brighton fans. And those Spurs fans who end up, again, understandably, but they end up taking it out on the players during the game, which doesn't help. You want the players to perform well. If you start yelling at them for being rubbish, that won't help. So you can yell at Levy for the decisions that he's made. You can yell at Paratici for the decisions, or Stellini. They're the ones that are really To me, this should be the focus of your ire, not the players. The players, you would hope, are doing all they can to get you of the victory that you've paid for, that you want to see. So that doesn't make any sense to me to lambast the players. I may think that Ryan Sessegnon is not good enough for Spurs, but if I'm in the stadium and he's playing, I want him to play well. I will put aside what I say the rest of to support him in his job, because he's the one who can get me what I want. No one, like other players, the people who are wearing that Spurs top, they're the ones that can get. So my ire won't be at them during the game. But, you know, like if we're losing 1 or 2-0 at half time tomorrow, which we could easily be, the boos, you can't just boo, because then no one knows where it's going. That's when you make it clear where your ire is. And you start shouting, Levy out, ENIC out, or whatever. But a standard boo is not specific enough to me.
No, I agree with you. And I think, just out of interest, do you think, people shout, "Get out of my club"? Do you think Daniel Levy shouts that back because it is technically his club?
Where's it technically his club?
Get out there. Huh?
He's got
20% in it.
30,
yeah, I was going to say proportionately,
30,
yeah.
Yeah. Get out of my club, Davo. Get out of my club.
Mind you, I mean, Caller's a part owner of his house, and I'm sure he says it's my house. The bank owns most of it. Who are we kidding? But that's the idea.
Most
isn't
of it actually, HG. They've got a minority shareholding. But
congratulations.
But I think, there is the potential for it to go quite toxic, and I would say that. I'd say it's to take your ire out on Stellini. I think Stellini has been he's been asked to stay on, obviously. I reckon that if he gets top 4, he'll get a nice bonus with that. But he's a little bit he's in a difficult position as well, because he's fronting up to the press conference. He's having to talk about everything left, right, and centre, where there's no one else from the club doing that. And to me, that's a real lack of leadership. To me, when you're a sign of a good leader is that you front up when things are going badly.
Yep.
I just think that we've seen that time and time again. Anyway,
106 million, by the way, HG match day receipts.
But that probably includes what you spend in the stadium, right? Like I'm literally just talking ticket prices. To me, ticket prices are the thing that you can slash, like, especially when the world is the way it is right now. Like, you want people to go to the stadium. Like, I understand the idea of, like, I want to maximize the revenue. I get that point. But right now, the balance is too much about revenue. And if the club said, you know what, this year, even if it was just for 1 year, we're going to knock it down a little bit, because we feel like you share some of that pain. They don't share that pain, so they don't do it. And and the thing is, like, it's not as if they're saying we're doing it for our shareholders. They are pretty much the shareholder. It's for them. So I just feel like they've made the appointment today of the new guy to be the chief football officer. I know we'll talk about it later, but it feels like his success in Australia was becoming more fan friendly, a bit more fan. Like, if you want to have that, ticket prices are the best way you can do it. Absolutely, you can do it. Yeah. And if the highest ticket prices are $1,700 for a general admission ticket, if you knock it down £100, it's not going to affect Spurs' performance on the pitch. It isn't. It's not going to affect who we can buy.
No, it's not. You're talking about a small amount of money. You've got to bear in mind that.
But it's not small it's not a small amount of money for the people that are paying it. And that's it. Like, you want the fans in the stadium to be behind the team at all times. And when you're fleecing them as much as they are, they're not under any pressure to pay it, but they will pay it. That's the thing, right? I turned around and said, understand that are tough. It's going to benefit you a lot and hurt us much less than it would be a smart thing to do. I get that they don't want to do it because they don't want the human angle. They're only focused on the revenue. And I understand too, but I just think that if you want to create a unified club, then that's the type of thing that would need to happen. And that would be something that I would absolutely protest about, because I've been against the ticket prices for a very long time.
Well, if you want to stop people moaning, it's a very easy way to score a quick win, isn't it? Sorry, David.
Sorry. Historically, Tottenham have always charged high ticket prices, right? There is a certain person on this panel who rang up LBC when Peter Shreve was installed as manager in the summer of '84. And when he was asked, "Are you going to go this season?" I said, "We're not renewing the season tickets because it's too expensive, and Liverpool's cheaper. And why is that?" To some cheers from my late father in the kitchen downstairs, right? So we've always charged a high price throughout, right? And I do remember Alan Sugar once said in an interview, he did say that the revenues from season ticket prices and match day prices will actually become a smaller proportion to the overall revenue of the club, which means that you would then reduce your season ticket prices and things like that, which obviously he never did. But for what, but he's obviously, I hate to say it, he's been proved to be right on that one. But I think the thing that annoys people is that when you are owned by a billionaire, and that you have the highest paid chairman in the Premier League and has been for a number of years, and it's felt that they don't put any of their money in, but a percentage and a high percentage of what people earn, they have to, which is their choice, but they fork out to go to the game. You look at someone like Becky and the amount of the amount of travel that she does to get to a game and back again, and it's repeated by so many other people who support Tottenham around the country. I think that they would want to see that, and I think it's a lot of it is bad PR as well. For example, when we went into the stadium late, and Levy obviously awarded himself the bonus, what would have been a good gesture of goodwill is to say to everyone, and everyone's got a season ticket or whatever, here's a 20 quid voucher for the shop. Apologies for the inconvenience that it's late. Yeah. It's that kind of PR stuff that you can do that to get people on side, and that's been really lacking in this club. And to finish off, because I'm going on too much, sorry, is that people talk about our PR and our comms has been shocking. So I pointed out on the chat that we had a guy who's the head of comms, a guy called Simon Felstein, who was at the club up to a couple of years ago. And you may remember him from that infamous Poch presser when the guy kept asking him about the United job, and he said, we're not doing this anymore. You asked about it the other day. And he got the cameras turned off. And I love that because it showed the passion that he had for the club, and we weren't going to get bossed around by the media. And I think we've seen that more and more in the last couple of years. And I think from what I've heard and read about him, he's well respected and liked. And I think we're missing that from a comms point of view now.
Just one minor correction: Ed Woodward earns more than Daniel Levy, or did, as the Manchester United chairman. So he wasn't the highest paid chairman in the league for lots of years. But we are splitting hairs. He's paid an awful lot of money, and I do take your point, Davo, because you're right. Let's talk about the weekend's football. So we've got a few games to predict. How do you see these? Should we all do one? Save us going round forever and ever and ever. Okay. HG, Man United, Everton.
I have a feeling that Eric will be back, certainly on the bench at least. Everton were woeful against us. They were shocking. United will win that, even if it's just 1-0 like against Brentford. Home win.
Yeah. I've got a 5 on Man United scoring the first goal, so hopefully they beat Everton. But I hope Everton pull it off on the flip side. Well, actually, no. Man United get the first goal. Everton win. There you go. That'd be beautiful. Davo, Villa versus Forest.
Well, I'm thinking about putting Ollie Watkins in my fantasy team. How's Fantasy League going for you at the moment, Caller?
I've made a couple of strategic errors across the season. This is the first season I've probably ever taken it seriously, whereas you've been playing it seriously for as long as you've been moaning about Daniel Levy. So I will concede that I've made some errors, including forgetting certain game weeks existed and not submitting a team. So therefore, I am about 100 points behind you now, I think, at last check. But all to play for.
Fair enough. I'm going Villa 3-0.
Okay. I've got to respond to this, Craig, because I don't like inaccuracy. We're not a multi-billion company. Our revenue is 440 million a year. Cam, what are you saying? Brentford, Newcastle, away League, Petman.
Newcastle 1-0.
Yeah. Again, I think Brentford could get a result here. I think it's I like the Bees, and I really hope that they do get a result. JP.
Fulham will do that one. Fulham 3-1.
Jeez.
Okay. Leicester, Bournemouth. I'll take that. The Foxes managerless versus Bournemouth. It's got a draw written all over it to me. That has 1-1. Spurs versus Brighton. We've already predicted. I was the only optimist in a sea of pessimists. Wolves versus Chelsea. HG.
Well, Lampard's in charge. Oh, blimey. Draw. 1-1.
1 each. Lampard back. We do need to briefly touch on that at the end. Davo, Southampton versus City.
And also Craig's come back to you, but we'll get to that in a minute. Southampton City. This is going to be a really tough one to call. I reckon. Will Theo Walcott get a hat trick? No. City 5-0.
Ooh, 5-0. Blimey. Okay. JP, Leeds versus Crystal Palace.
Battle of the which one's going down, really. Leeds in this one. It'll be scrappy 2-1.
Okay. And Liverpool versus Arsenal. Let's get everyone's view on this because this is quite a big one and could go either way. I'm going to say Liverpool are going to derail Arsenal's title challenge because that's what I choose to believe. 1-0, 2-0 Liverpool. HG?
2-2.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that Klopp did something decisive about the sacred cows in his team in the week. He dropped Salah, he dropped Van Dijk.
Yeah.
I'd love to see our manager do that with Son and Højbjerg. I think the Goons are going to win 3-1.
Okay. Cam?
3-3.
3-3. And JP?
I don't think we're making top 4 regardless of what Liverpool do. So come on, Liverpool. Let's go 6-0.
Well, they did beat United 7-0, 7 whatever it was. So they could completely pull a rabbit out of the hat there.
Here's to hoping. Here's to hoping.
I mean, Davo's just sat there and praised Klopp for dropping Salah. Does that mean you don't want Salah to start tomorrow against Arsenal on Sunday? Is that what you're trying to say?
Oh, bloody hell. You've done it again, HG. Killer argument every time. Hang on, we're up to an hour and 22, you bastard. Hang on a minute. No, I don't. Well done. But in the context of doing something decisive, I'm having a real problem with that word today, about team selection, I'd like Stellini to do that. There you go. We've got a response.
Yeah.
There you go. We've got a response. There's not a lot, though, he can do with team selection, surely, right now, Davo. He's only got about 11 fit players.
Well, I'd like Dan Juma, can play for Sun.
Does anyone think Dan Juma will come in for Son?
No, not in a million years. Not in a million years. Not in a million years.
I do think it was quite funny. On Twitter, the Tottenham admin put a video of Dan Juma working out in the gym, and it's like, really, what's the point of that? It's a bit of a strange.
That's the one thing we know that he's doing. Is it just to show that he's doing something? Yes. He doesn't get to play.
He's getting paid a week to sit there and do nothing.
It's like sticking the work experience kid on the recruitment ad. Like, okay, that's cool.
Well, let's talk Scott Munn then. Appointed chief football officer. Paratici will report into him if he keeps his job. We should find out the answer to that in a couple of weeks. Scott Munn, I know your view, HG, but I will come back to it. But I want to hear.
No. Can we go? Look, I think Cameron knows him best. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
JP probably knows him too. He's Aussie. Like they're Aussies. They should know more about him. I want to know what they think.
There's 26 million people in Australia. I don't go around getting intimately personal knowledge around each and every one of them.
Yeah, you do. There's 26
Cam
million
knew something.
you know.
Well, Cam knew something about him, so I thought you might as well, JP. I was trying to
Wait,
give you an
Cam
option.
happens to support the club that he used to be, whatever he was, CEO of Melbourne City or whatever it was.
Yeah,
There's
Melbourne
26.
City.
Hang on. There's 26 million people in Australia.
Something like that. Maybe 27. I don't know.
I didn't know we'd exported that many. Anyway,
Excuse me.
right.
Excuse me. Why haven't you asked me? I've got an Aussie passport. Thank you very much.
Because you are one of said convicts exported. JP, go to this. Work your way. I'm going to need to get a beer. It's been a very difficult day. JP, you start. Give us all you've got on Scott Munn, and then pass it up to Cam, pass it up to Dave, and the piece de la resistance. HG will tell us why he thinks he's not the right man for the job.
I think it's worth probably starting with the fact that I don't think Scott Munn has been brought in for recruitment purposes in a director of football type role, which gives me a little bit more confidence. Look, he managed the Melbourne City group, which are a very well-run club here in Australia, but I would argue with all of that, they are pretty much the only club in Australia with any kind of financial support beyond the revenue that the club can generate itself. So it's going to be able to attract the best young talent because it has the best facilities. It has the ability to give them everything they need and the pathways into the city group.
Not that bad, mate. Melbourne Victory's not that bad.
But they're self-funded. Melbourne
Hang
Victory
on.
is self-funded.
There's a Melbourne Biffo going on here.
Yeah.
But look, they're a well-run club. I think without stealing your thunder, HG, a well-run club that had done nothing until they hired Patrick Kisnorbo, who's now managing in France, and they won a couple of trophies. That also kind of happened after he left. So how much of Melbourne City's on-field success we can put down to him, I don't know, but he has built a well-structured footballing operation out of that team, again with the caveat that he has all the money he could desire to do so with.
Yeah, but there's a salary cap in the A-League, JP, and you know that.
Salary caps do not apply to infrastructure or the operations around football or a youth team. They only apply to the on-field players you can sign, which he had nothing to do with.
But he set up the opera. So basically, Scott Munn, yes, has not just worked in the A-League in Australia, but worked in the NRL, the AFL, I think the Sydney Olympic Committee when they had it 20 years ago. So he's had a wide landscape of sporting administrative experience. Now, I don't know exactly the function that he is going to be doing at Spurs if the football operations report into him or what. I need to read into it more. I've only just saw the announcement today, but I would like to know the specifics of that. And I think we talked prior to the show with HG. I assume Paratici or people like Paratici would report into him. He has, at recent times, yes, at Melbourne City, overseen the transformation from what was Melbourne Heart, which is a basket case, to Melbourne City FC, who have become, yes, a very good operating club in terms of their football club, their team, their infrastructure. So he has, you would say, been a pretty good string puller for transforming a club that was horrendously underperforming to where they are now in the Australian A-League. I think coming to Spurs, yes, that's probably going to be his biggest job. I would back him because he's got a wide range of sports administration experience there. I would like to know more about his job role and his function of how the reporting lines are going, but I actually think he could be reasonably a success within the club.
I mean,
okay.
And this is it. Go on, Dave, you go next.
Should we go and then you? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So first thing is you know, we're very respectful here in the cheese room, but this is a very, very insulting comment from King Hoddle there. And I think someone did once put on that I was like a charming Alf Stewart from Home and Away, which let me tell you something. I might even stick that on my gravestone. I was well happy with that. That is a compliment as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to steal HG's thunder, so I will just say a couple of things. One is in terms of the theory behind this of having a director of football operations, which the director of Paratici would report into, and probably not Paratici, and it all comes under that person's auspices, the whole football operations. I think it's a really good thing, and I'm very pleased about that, as long as Levy stays out. The second thing is, I'm a bit concerned about that we've appointed him, but we've got to give him a chance, and actually I'll talk about it a bit more. But the person I would like to have seen is Michael Edwards, who was at Liverpool, took a sabbatical. He was at Tottenham, I think, under Comoli. He did a fantastic job with Liverpool. I would have loved to have seen him there. On another podcast this week, someone was calling for Paul Barber to come back into Tottenham and take that role. So the idea of that role and having everyone report into him, I think is a great thing. I want to see alignment now, and that's what we have to have of this role, of the director of football, of the coach we select, therefore of the style of football that we play, therefore of the recruitment, and therefore what we do in the academy and playing that style. So I welcome the role. I'm not sure about him, but who knows? I will now hand over to HG.
All right. So look, like most of us, I mean, Cameron knew who I was. I certainly didn't before today. Before I saw his name on the interwebs, I'd never heard of him. Right? There's there's not a number of city administrators around the world that I've heard of, but I've heard a few of them over the years, and I've never heard of this bloke. So of course, I wanted to find out kind of his track record. I looked at the statement that the club. Daniel Levy said that he had a unique and broad experience at the highest level, and I'm thinking, highest level? I mean, no disrespect to the A-League, but I don't consider that to be the highest level. I don't consider City Football Group China to be the highest level. That just felt like usual Levy speak. Right? It's like me when I wrote my personal statement when I was 16 years old, and I sell myself in the most vague way possible to explain what I actually did when what I really did was clean the toilets. Do you know what I mean? It just felt like that. So I've heard that he was very big on fan engagement down in Australia. I think that is obviously something that Spurs do need. They do need someone who's there to deal with the fans. I've seen that he has followed a few significant accounts on Twitter, which I guess is probably a good thing unless he's spying, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But he's on the board of directors. And so to me, if you're thinking of a hierarchy, obviously you've got the manager, in this case right now, Paratici, and then above him is going to be the chief football officer, right? And again, the CFO is not just for the men's team, it's for all football activities at the club. So whether it's Spurs women, Spurs under 21 women, I don't know what levels we've got, but he is going to be in charge of the entire football pyramid at Spurs. Now, I could understand that you know what? In effect, there's now a barrier between Levy and Paratici, or whoever the director of football is going to be. And when Dave was talking about Michael Edwards coming in, to me, Michael Edwards would be the director of football. He wouldn't be the administrator guy who making sure that everything is, all the synergies and all that management bollocks that people come up with. That's going to be Scotty Munn's job, to me. But as far as I'm concerned, the issue at Spurs has been identifying football talent. Scotty Munn, there's no example of him being able to do that. So I don't see it as the massive win that I've maybe seen on Twitter today. I understand that people are excited that Levy no longer be involved in football things, but Levy appointed various directors of football over the year so that they could worry about the football, and he still had a few fingers involved here and there.
Yeah, but HG, he could appoint the right recruiting agent or officer, whatever you want to call it, for that role. He's obviously changed Melbourne City around from a well underperforming club, so he might have put the right people in the right roles to start the success of Melbourne City.
And I mean, and that's the thing. But like, if you're looking at, I mean, when he left Melbourne City was what, February 2019, and as JP said, they didn't start winning until he'd gone. So it either took him 9 years to build a structure that could then produce something, and I don't know if there were academy players in that Melbourne City team that went on to win things. I mean, you would know that more than me. But it looks like you can either say this guy is so good it took him 9 years to win it all, or you can say he only started winning when he left. And I don't know if those is true, but I also know that there is an Australian, an A-League club, Western United, also in Melbourne, who went from 2018 to winning it all last year. Now that might be a fluke. No, I don't know that. But I see that as an example of it is possible in the league to go from nothing to winning it all much quicker than Melbourne did, and certainly with fewer losses than Melbourne City have had, if what JP said, which I do, like, you know, it's a City football group. Without wanting to be too controversial, we all understand why that was involved in football around the world. So, like, they're doing something that they're able to do, and maybe other clubs in Australia. I think that, like, as much as I'm okay with this guy taking this new job that we didn't have before, I don't know if I see it being the change that I want to see at Spurs. Because I don't see, or I haven't read any evidence that Scott Munn employed people at Melbourne City who figured out how to change things on a football. When it comes to its hierarchies and synergies, I don't know. But from a football sense, it didn't happen until he left. Because Norbo, I think, was assistant manager when he was there, but didn't become manager until after he'd left. So I'm concerned. Like, to me, the key role is going to be what happens with Paratici, right? Replacing him is the most important thing. Now, if Scott Munn's making that decision, I don't see any evidence that he will make a good choice. There's nothing in his previous work that makes me think this guy can spot a football man, a good football man. I see that, yeah, fine, you can create a nice structure of football within the club, but to me the most important thing is that we buy good players and we play good football and we win football games. And I don't think Scott Munn had much to do with that at Melbourne. And that to me is the thing. So whoever the director of football is, once Paratici disappears for 2.5 years or whatever it might end up being, I don't know, maybe longer. That to me is the key appointment. And this new guy may be super nice and super good at his job, but I'm less worried about Levy getting involved in the odd transfer than I am about getting those transfers right. That's what's important to me, because everyone says that like Jedsped was a club signing, which means Levy and Paratici, right? If Jedsped comes in next season and does really well playing for Spurs and becomes first choice, or like plays often enough that Porro is kind of dislodged every now and again, then does that mean I think Levy is a good football brain? No. It just means we got something right, which I'm happy about. That's all I want.
It does seem a strange appointment. I will say that it's a very weird thing, but we will see. What time will tell. What
Conspiracy
happened?
Theory.
Sorry, JP.
Conspiracy theory. I think that it's convenient that they've announced this appointment weeks before they have to make a real decision about Paratici. And so all of a sudden, Daniel Levy is no longer responsible for telling his best mate that he doesn't have a role at the football club anymore.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with this. Yeah.
And also the fact that they've announced this on the Friday before the Saturday, where the chance of having a toxic atmosphere if we're going 2 or 3-0 down is also very handy. And it's just that, my concern about the appointment is Levy does not have a very good track record of appointing anyone.
No.
But look, it's a different type of appointment. Is the only, like, if we're looking for positives in it, it removes Daniel Levy as a person from footballing decisions. So there's an extra level involved in that where he's not going to take part. Great. I think everyone can get on board with that. Talk about who the right person is, blah, blah, blah. The other thing is it's a very different type of appointment. It's not down the line of appointments we've made in recent times. So, hey, there's some different thinking that we've been open to there. I'm open to see where it goes. I've got I wouldn't even say they're red flags. I would just say, to your point, HG, like there's not enough information out there to say, based on the body of work, that we can be sure that this man will be a success.
Right.
No,
And I will say, like I read in a chat group today, someone said that the very fact he's been part of the City football group, who have been successful in creating the structures that they have with teams all over the world, that maybe Levy is paying for that knowledge more than anything else.
Yep.
They say, like, I've got a guy who's seen what they do. Like, I'm not suggesting that Spurs want to recreate City football group, but he will have knowledge that and various other people won't. So, like, if you're paying for that, then okay. But it's a consultancy thing. It's not the man who's in charge of the entire operations at your club. Like, I like, to me, director of football needs to be someone who is either a scout, they can find talent, whether they played football or not. They need to have proven to do that job, right? Paratici, whether you believe it or not, did well at Juventus. Maybe he didn't do as well as he could have. Maybe there were other people responsible, but there was some kind of evidence that he had made good decisions. Made sense. Michael Edwards would be a wonderful choice because it's clear that he was a massive part of what Liverpool did and how they churned that squad over, selling players for 15, 20 million to Bournemouth pretty much season on season. Michael Edwards is the most qualified man to be the football if he leaves. And like Scott Munn might be the loveliest guy, and he may do a really good job. But again, the success for the team, as far as I'm concerned, depends on the director of football who's finding the players and the manager who's coaching and picking those things. And the person who's at the top of the pyramid is basically, to me, it's who they report to. Like, do I think that Scott Munn is going to be the one sacking a director of football at the end of a season? I'm not sure I believe that. Like we'll see it when it, if and when it happens. But I think that like this idea that like Scott Munn is between Levy and Paratici, to me it's more kind of on the side. It's board of directors, and yes, Levy has the biggest seat at the end of the table, but I don't know really what difference it's going to make. I still think that Levy will be more involved than most Spurs fans, including me, would like him to be.
I think. What do I think of this? I think, look, let's give it a chance and we'll see what happens. I know what I think it looks like, but I'm ready to be
that. Tell me what you think it looks like.
What do I think it looks like? They've signed up a very experienced, certainly in the business world, chap to, run the job of managing the football side of the operation. But it looks to me like JP said, to sack Fabio ultimately. But they wouldn't have brought someone in just for that purpose. So it's a ridiculous notion to think that. And what I hope is that Daniel Levy is obviously distancing himself further and further from the football. So, if you look over the last couple of years, he's put Paratici in, that's one level, assuming we go with that model and he gets replaced. There's now two levels between him and the footballers. So gradually he's drifting away from the training ground, away from the canteen, sitting there looking like the sad uncle who wants to get to know all the teenagers. And eventually, he's putting more and more distance between himself and the footballing side. And great, because he's a good businessman, right? So get on with that side of things. Let someone who knows what they're doing run the football side of things, and let's hope that the Australian wonder kid knows his stuff. You don't generally pay all that money to bring an executive in. And let's be fair, Citigroup is a big organisation that's been very, very successful. So he is going to have a lot of management know-how and how to run the footballing side of the business. I don't think he's like incompetent or anything like that. I just think that.
To me, it's just a surprise. It's not the change. I think everyone looked at that and thought, great, Levy's moving further away from football. And on the face of it, that may well be true. But to me, it's still very much a shallow observation. I don't really believe it yet, how far away he's going to go. And the change is minimal. And then you've got a case of, how are we going to get better on the pitch? Scott
I
Munn
guess
is probably not going to change that.
no, but I think Scott Munn's going to ultimately lead the search for Paratici's replacement first and foremost, because I don't see him hanging around for any long period of time now, especially with someone being brought over him as well. Because I think even if he was to be cleared of everything and able to continue his job, it probably puts him in a slightly more awkward position than he was.
It would be interesting, like those of us with more time, and I realise I have a lot because I'm not working right now, but like you'd look at the City Football Group and you'd look at their teams and you'd try and figure out who was making the football decisions at Melbourne City in the last 3-4 years. Who has been making football decisions in the City Football Group? And I don't mean actually in Manchester. I mean, it could be in Spain with Girona, it could be in Uruguay, it could be anywhere, wherever their teams are. Yeah. Like maybe he will look to find someone that he knows and that he trusts. That to me would be a logical thing, because again, if he's just going to say, "Well, I want to get Michael Edwards," well, Davo figured that out. Right, and there's a whole bunch of I don't think many football fans know too many sporting directors or directors of football, but the ones you do know are the ones that have been successful. So you're going to be taking away from Red Bull Leipzig, like Chelsea have done, right? Chelsea have brought in a guy from Red Bull, and I think there's Arsenal brought in a guy from German football, and then they got rid of him with the whole Arteta reshuffle, and that guy is now back in German football and is being headhunted again. Like those names come up, it's the same names really, but it's. That to me, that's the important thing. I wish Scott Munn the best. I want him to do a really good job. I wanted Todd Klein to do a really good job in his thing, and Trevor Birch in his thing before that, because to me, they're about the club being successful, but not necessarily the team, and that's where my focus is.
So when you think about the number of, sorry, Dave, I'll come to you in one sec. When you think about the number of execs we've actually appointed, like Todd Klein, like this new chap, like Paratici, we've must be spending an awful lot of wages that we weren't a few years ago on these executive positions. So you'd like to be hoping they are adding value to the business, B, on the pitch activities. Dave, I'll come back.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, you see the You see the board numbers in the accounts, and you can see that the directors are very well remunerated. We've got this guy. I mean, if he appoints Justin Langer as the new director of football, then I'm going to be concerned.
Speaking of, put my patriotic hat on now, right? The last time Europeans were knocking an Australian appointment in football turned out to be all right, Naj Postecoglou. And then if I go down your trail... If I go down your trail, HG, and we talk about someone from the City Group taking on football operations, looking for football people within the City Group to come in, well, Spurs are looking for a new manager, and Ange Postecoglou was in the City Group. So the dots are all lining up.
Oh, here we go.
But where was Ange?
Another Melburnian.
Is that where he was in the City Group?
Yokohama were part of the City Group, yeah.
Yep.
And so that would have been when Munn was in China, I guess, around the same time. Because Munn left for China in 2019. There are dots to be joined, and it's not much of a stretch, is it?
Not much of a stretch.
No, not at all.
Okay. I chose a really inconvenient moment to trick a pork scratching in my mouth. Look. Hard as nails there as well. I can't chew my way out of it, so I'm just gonna have to style it out.
You've had an eventful show tonight, caller. I think we've had at least 3 different impersonations tonight from you, which I think is a world record.
Well, look, what can I say about that?
Sean Dyche, Australians, and there was one other.
The Sean Dyche one's never very good. It sounds like Tyson Fury and Sean Dyche's bastard child or something. But
I mean, just do your natural voice for Sean Dyche. He's not that far from you.
Well,
I tell you, he does sound a bit Sean Dyche, and that's Craig.
Craig's very close to it too.
Have a listen to him on the Wednesday show.
Sounds like he smokes about 40 a day, though, doesn't he? There's a certain bit of gruffness in the voice. It's a bit like that,
Yeah, but I mean, how far is Kettering from you, caller? It's not that far, is it?
15 minutes.
Yeah, right. So,
No, a bit longer,
like,
half
granted,
an hour.
you're not a Northamptonshire boy, and Deitch is, but yeah, it's not too far. You're both pseudo Brummies, really, aren't you?
Pseudo Brummies. I'm a Kent boy. Anyway, moving swiftly on. What?
He said
You went
Kent.
to school. You went to school in Telford. I'm a Kent boy. Yeah, Terry
I went
Butcher's
to
not
school in Kent
Singaporean, but he
as
was
well,
born
didn't
there.
Eh?
Sorry,
I went to school and was brought up in Swanscombe, Kent.
you said you were from Telford. You've always said you're from Telford. Where's the Brummie accent from? If you're flipping from Kent.
Moved into Shropshire when I was. But this show isn't about me, but I'll talk to you after the show. Anyway, Cam, enjoy the game tomorrow. Thanks very much for joining. Look after my seat. I will be back for it the following week.
Sure, cannot wait.
Yeah, it's
Leave some chewing gum underneath for him,
Do
Cam.
I'll try and do that, actually. I'll get some from Brixton Market tomorrow or something. Make sure I leave it on there.
And put some on the seats around you.
It's not a bad idea, actually.
No, only put chewing gum on the seats around you, but leave coolers free of any involvement.
I'll do that.
outrageous. JP, you're sounding sweet on that new mic, mate. So
Yeah.
thanks for
Oh,
joining.
excellent. Thanks to the cheese room for hooking me up. No, it's been good. Thanks for having me on last minute. Although I did bail last minute as well, so I've just kind of corrected things out. But it's been a good chat. Looking forward to the Australian takeover of Tottenham. Amazing.
You did a Conte. Is he here or is he gone?
Yeah.
Davo,
It's
thanks
just
for the run
absolute
sheet.
just absolute indifference, isn't there? Davo, whatever. So look, Cam, I hope you have a nice time. Say hello to Aslan and Narnia in the wardrobe behind you this weekend. Enjoy.
And HG, as ever, the voice of Austria. Pleasure to be with you this evening. Yeah.
I mean, I hope to be one of the better things to be associated with Austria. There's a number of not so nice things, but yeah,
You're talking about sound of music's not that bad.
It's basically Schwarzenegger, Christoph Waltz. I must be coming up close to being third now in the half decent things associated with Austria.
Adolf.
33rd. No. We don't need to go there.
You started dodgily.
Well,
you started dodgily beforehand, didn't you?
Yeah.
He did live down the road from me when he was here a long time ago.
It's rubbing off
True
on you.
story.
Right.
Not far away. Oh, hang on a second. I'm not having that.
And until next time, come on, you Spurs!
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.